the territory of the state under Prince Oleg.
Prince Oleg was the first ruler to bring Polotsk, Smolensk, and Novgorod under the authority of Kiev. The population of these lands was predominantly Slavic. Only some Finno-Ugric tribes, including the Chud people, lived in the areas around Novgorod. At the same time, vast territories of what is now Central Russia had not yet come under Kiev's control. These lands would only be incorporated during the reigns of Oleg's successors. At the head of the state stood the Grand Prince of Kiev. He held supreme legislative, executive, judicial, and military authority. The prince was advised by the Boyar Council, which served as a consultative body. An important role was also played by the Vesh, an assembly of free townspeople that could sometimes influence political decisions. Local administration was carried out by princely governors, mayors, military commanders, thousand-men leaders, stewards, and other officials. Agriculture remained the foundation of the economy. People cultivated grain, raised livestock, hunted, fished, and practiced beekeeping. Crafts developed rapidly. Skilled artisans produced metal tools, weapons, pottery, glassware, and jewelry. International trade was of enormous importance. Kiev controlled the famous trade route known as the route from the Varangians to the Greeks, as well as major overland routes connecting east and west. The growth of trade, crafts, and government administration encouraged the emergence of new towns and the rapid expansion of existing ones. The highest social class consisted of the boyars and the prince's warrior retinue. The majority of the population were free peasants known as smurds. There were also zakups, people who worked off debts while remaining personally free. The lowest social status belonged to slaves and household servants, although their numbers in Kievan Rus were relatively small. The inhabitants of towns were mainly engaged in trade and various crafts.
The First International Treaties of Rus.
Oleg's campaign against Byzantium greatly increased the prestige of the Kievan state. Rus obtained favorable trading privileges, and the princes of Kiev became known far beyond their own lands. The Treaty of 907 is considered the first diplomatic act of the Kievan state. According to the chronicle, after his victory Oleg nailed his shield to the gates of Constantinople as a symbol of the success of his campaign. A few years later, in 911, a new and more detailed treaty was concluded between Rus and Byzantium. This agreement regulated trade, political relations, civil law, and criminal law between the two states. These treaties demonstrate that Kiev had already emerged as an influential European capital with its own government, laws, and foreign policy.
Prince Oleg set out on a campaign against Byzantium, leaving Igor in Kiev. He was joined by warriors from many different peoples: Varangians, Slovenes, Chud, Kriviches, Maria, Polans, Severians, Drevlians, Radomics, Croats, Dulebs, and Tvertsi. In the chronicle, all these peoples were collectively referred to as Great Scythia. Oleg assembled a massive army that advanced both by land and by sea. According to the chronicle, the expedition included about 2,000 ships. The army arrived at Constantinople, known in Rus as Tsargrad. The Byzantines immediately closed the entrance to the harbor and shut the city gates. Oleg landed his troops and ordered the ships to be pulled ashore. The forces of Rus began devastating the outskirts of the city. Many settlements were destroyed, and the Byzantines suffered heavy losses. Oleg then ordered wheels to be attached to the ships. When a favorable wind arose, sails were raised, and the ships moved across the land toward the walls of Constantinople. The sight astonished and terrified the city's inhabitants. The Byzantines quickly sent envoys to Oleg, asking him not to destroy the city. They agreed to pay tribute on whatever terms the prince demanded. For the negotiations they brought Oleg food and wine, but he refused to accept them, suspecting poison. This frightened the Byzantines even more. They reportedly said that they were facing not an ordinary warrior but Saint Demetrius himself, sent against them by God. Oleg demanded a substantial tribute, 12 silver grivnas for each warrior. According to the chronicle, each ship carried about 40 men. The Byzantines agreed to these demands. In addition, the prince required separate payments for the cities of Rus. The largest shares were to go to Kiev, Chernihiv, Pereyaslav, Polotsk, Rostov, Lubeck, and other cities ruled by princes loyal to Oleg. After the agreement was concluded, Oleg returned to Kiev with great riches. Together with his army, he brought back gold, expensive fabrics, wine, precious ornaments, and many other treasures. The people of Kiev welcomed him as a victorious ruler. It was after this campaign that Oleg received his famous nickname, Oleg the Prophet, or Oleg the Wise, reflecting his reputation as a far-sighted and intelligent ruler. According to the chronicle, the nickname was earned because he had supposedly foreseen the Byzantine attempt to poison him.
The terms of the treaty with Byzantium.
During the negotiations, Oleg presented several important demands. The Byzantines were required to pay silver to every warrior of Rus and provide gifts to the princes of the major cities of the realm. Envoys from Kiev visiting Constantinople were to receive support at the emperor's expense. Merchants from Rus were granted the right to receive food and provisions free of charge in Byzantium for up to 6 months. When returning home, they were also provided with essential ship equipment, including sails, ropes, anchors, and other supplies. In return, Oleg guaranteed that his people would not harm Byzantine lands and would enter Constantinople unarmed and only in small groups. All these conditions were accepted by both sides. It was during Oleg's rule that Kiev firmly became the capital of a great state. The Norman dynasty began to regard it as the principal political center of its possessions. Thanks to the energy and determination of the first Varangian rulers, Kiev succeeded in uniting the resources of the Polans, Severians, and other tribes and began building a powerful state. By Oleg's time, Kievan Rus already controlled most of the Slavic lands of present-day Ukraine, Belarus, and the Novgorod region, gradually becoming one of the most influential powers in Eastern Europe.
The death of Oleg the Prophet.
After his successful campaign against Byzantium, Prince Oleg returned to Kiev with great riches. He brought back gold, expensive fabrics, wine, precious treasures, and many other valuables. The people of Kiev admired their ruler and began calling him Oleg the Prophet, or Oleg the Wise. Some time passed. One autumn, Oleg remembered his favorite war horse. Many years earlier, pagan seers had predicted that his death would somehow be connected to this horse. After hearing the prophecy, Oleg decided never to ride the animal again. He ordered that the horse be well cared for and fed, but never brought before him. Years went by. Oleg neither saw the horse nor paid much attention to it. He continued ruling his realm, leading military campaigns, and returning home victorious. Several years after his return from Byzantium, Oleg recalled the old prophecy and learned that his beloved horse had long since died. Hearing this, he concluded that the seers had been mistaken, since the horse was dead while he himself remained alive and well. Wanting to prove that the prophecy was false, Oleg traveled to the place where the horses' remains lay. There he found only a skull and scattered bones. The prince treated the prediction with skepticism and even mocked it. However, according to the chronicle legend, at that very moment a snake crawled out from the horse's skull and bit Oleg on the leg. The poison quickly took effect. The prince became seriously ill and died soon afterward. According to the chronicles, Oleg's death was a great loss for his people. They mourned their ruler deeply. He was buried on Shekhovitsia Hill in Kiev. The chronicler wrote that for many years afterward, local residents continued to show visitors Oleg's grave and referred to it as the grave of Oleg.
An interesting historical fact. Most historians consider this story to be a legend. Similar tales about prophecies and death caused by a horse can also be found in Old Norse sagas. This may indicate that some of the legends surrounding Oleg originated from Varangian traditions. Nevertheless, the story became so famous that the image of Oleg the prophet entered both history and popular memory as that of a wise ruler who tried to escape his fate, but ultimately could not avoid what had been foretold. Historians also continue to debate whether ships could really have been moved on wheels toward the walls of Constantinople. Many scholars regard this episode as a chronicle legend intended to emphasize Oleg's military power and impress future generations with his victory over the mighty Byzantine Empire. However, the fact that favorable treaties were concluded between Rus and Byzantium in the early 10th century is confirmed by historical sources.
Dear friends, if you like to study the real history of Ukraine, I would like to ask you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and spread the information. I will be extremely grateful to you for this. I wish you all a good mood, health, and inspiration. See you in the next video. Goodbye.